Okay, so first, yes, let's go to page number 2 out of the 12 pages. Now, the first thing that you have to do when you are talking about, well, learning numbers, before you start using the number 1, 17, 312, 4 million, yeah, before you do all of that, you first have to know how to say the word number. Okay, so before you start using numbers to count, quantify, label, yeah, you first have to know how to say the word number. Okay, so that's what we're going to start doing. So there are, in large, depending on perspective, you can say 3 versions or 4 versions of the word number. And of course, it means that depending on the context, you have to know which version of the word number you're going to use. That's why page number 2 says, before you learn how to use numbers to count, quantify, and label, you have to first know how to say the word number, since you will have to use different versions in different contexts. Okay, so now, first, it says when you are just simply saying the word number. Okay, what does that mean? It means that you are not using numbers for any kind of a function. Yes, usually the reason why you use numbers is because you want them to do something. You want them to serve some kind of a purpose. You want their function. And yes, typically numbers have 3 functions, right? You can be using it to count, using a number to count how many. That's a function that a number has, one of the most typical ones. So for example, if you're going to say, yeah, how many chairs do we have? Do we need more? Let's count. 30 people will show up. Now, how many chairs do we have? Let's count. Oh, we have 28 chairs. We need 2 more. Okay, yeah, that's what a number can do. Now, however, there's also quantifying, right? Sorry. Okay, so for example, when you're saying something like, how hot is it today? So if the question is, how hot is it today? What are we talking about? We're talking about temperature then. Do we count temperature? Do we say something like, how many temperatures do we have today? Of course not. Temperature is not something that you count, it's something that you quantify. Okay, so numbers can also, yeah, be used to quantify. Okay, so you can say, oh, it's 18 degrees. Okay, quantify. Number 3, yeah, you can also be using it as a way of labeling, right? And yeah, when I say label, I also include any kind of coding. For example, like when you have like a code, a password, I also call that labeling. Okay, because for example, if I need some kind of a password to get into some kind of a website, it means that I have to activate a certain current frequency, yeah, that will enable me to get into this website. Okay, so that current frequency is labeled, let's say the password is 1234, then that current frequency is labeled 1234. Okay, so when I say label, I am also including any kind of a form of code like a password. Okay, so now for another example, yeah, for example, let's say I am at a karaoke. Now I'm waiting for a friend. I already arrived first. So my friend steps in and says, well, arrives and says, okay, how can I find you? Now I'm gonna say, come to room number 3. Okay, so if there are a couple of rooms, karaoke's, everybody's singing. So if I'm gonna say, oh, I'm already there, come to room number 3. How does my friend know which room is number 3? Well, it's going to be labeled number 3, right? There's going to be a sign that says number 3. So that's what I mean by using a number to not count, not quantify, but just to label. Okay, because when I say come to room number 3, I'm not counting. I'm not saying come to 3 rooms. No, I'm not quantifying either. I'm not saying that this room is like 3 degrees hot. No, I'm not doing any of that. It's just labeling. Okay, so yeah, usually you will use numbers for some kind of a function, count, quantify, or label. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Should we continue? Okay. However, yeah, when we were talking about vocabulary, yeah, this part of page number 2 was saying simply saying the word number. Yeah, that's what I mean by simply saying the word number. When you are not using numbers for any kind of a function. For example, when you're just saying something like, I just want to know, I'm just asking, can you write numbers in Korean? Now, I'm not asking you to use numbers to count something. Hey, how many markers do we have? Can you please tell me in Korean numbers? No, I'm not asking you to count. I'm not asking you to quantify. I'm not saying, yeah, can you please tell me the temperature but using Korean, speaking Korean? No, I'm not asking you to use numbers to quantify. And I'm not saying, yeah, can you tell me the room of the number that you are in but in Korean? No, I'm not asking you to use numbers to label either. I'm just saying, do you know numbers in Korean? Okay, so in that case, it would be 숫자, 숫자. Okay, so let's take a look at another example then. Oops. Sorry. Drop the eraser. Okay, so yeah, let's say me and my friend were traveling. Now, let's say we are going through some kind of a cave. Okay, so yes, a very mysterious cave. And we see something on the wall. It kind of looks like this, for example. Okay, so we see this on the wall. It seems like, yeah, there were people living here a long time ago. It might be some kind of ancient civilization. Okay, so I'm gonna ask my friend, is this some kind of number? Okay, this is, in Korean, this is some kind of number. Of course, we don't know this language. I'm just saying, is this some kind of number? Okay, yeah, this is exactly what I mean by, yes, just simply using the word number. I'm not counting, I'm not quantifying, I'm not labeling either. Okay, so what do we have? We have two nouns. When you're placing kind of in front of a noun, like some kind of, this kind of, that kind of, yeah, we already know how to do this, right? Yeah, do not separate it from the noun that it modifies. If number is the subject complement, then some kind of together is the subject complement. Once again, why am I calling this the subject and some kind of number the subject complement? Because I'm simply saying a noun is a noun. Okay. So, yeah, how do I know if something is a noun? Well, if it's something that can stay practically alone in front of is, am, was, were, are, we know it's a noun. Well, is this a noun? Yeah, it's a pronoun, still a noun. I'm literally placing it alone in front of is, am, was, were, are. This is. And I can do the same thing with some kind of number, because I can say, I don't know exactly what they said, but some kind of number was said. Okay, so I can place some kind of number in front of is, am, was, were, are as well. So they are both nouns. And when you're just simply saying a noun is a noun, you're saying the subject is a subject complement. Okay, so now we know that a Korean sentence can never end with a subject complement, right? So if you have a subject complement, it means you have to add an ending mark behind. Okay, so now I'm going to try to make the sentence using the word number. And yeah, we know exactly which version of number we should use because I'm not using numbers for any kind of a function. Okay, so the subject this will be invisible because it's too obvious. Of course, I'm talking about this. Now, when you're placing some kind of in front of a noun, the best way to do it is 무슨. Okay, so of course there are other ways of doing it, but I would advise you to use 무슨 for now. Okay, 무슨 and then 숫자. Yeah, I'm not going to use the other versions of 숫자. And then, because I need an ending mark and the subject complement ends with a vowel, yeah, the vowel version looks like this, right? 무슨 숫자예요? Okay, so that's why When I was saying number, I did not use 수, I didn't use 번호 or 번. I'm using 숫자. Okay, so now we have 무슨 숫자예요? Some kind of number plus ending mark. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Okay, okay. So, now, yeah, the version 숫자 that I used was used once again because I'm simply saying the word number. But as you can see, there's another case in which this exact same version is used. Yes, when you're using numbers to quantify, not count how many or labeling, when you're quantifying. Okay, so that's why I gave you the example temperature. When you're saying, hey, how cold is it today? You're talking about temperature. You don't count temperature. We're not saying how many temperatures do we have. No, we're just quantifying how cold it is. Okay, so if you feel like that's what's going on within the given context, then also 숫자. That's why in this case, A says the temperature dropped a lot. Now, B says, you can't just say a lot, that's too vague. You have to give me an exact number. Okay, so I'm asking you to give me a number that quantifies, also 숫자. Okay, so now, yeah, let's actually try to say this. You have to give me an exact number. Okay. So what am I going to do? Let's say my job is to exactly know the temperature. You can't just say it's a little cold, it's kind of chilly. No, you have to give me an exact number. Okay, so let's try to say this. We know exactly the version of number we will use. 숫자. Okay, so of course I'm talking to you. Know me, know us and thus. So we have exact number, the object, and we have the verb have to give. Okay, so yeah. Now we have exact. The adjective exact would be 정확하다. Okay, so I'm not going to go into all the details of inflection, in other words, conjugation and grammar right now, because this course we will be strictly focusing on numbers. Okay, so yeah, I need exact, but in its attributive adjective form, right? An adjective that stays right in front of a noun. Okay, so the attributive adjective form, the N ending. Okay, so 정확한, according to the rules of inflection route number 2, because the N ending belongs to inflection route number 2. Okay, 정확한 숫자. Okay, so now we have the object. Because in Korean, the object comes first, right? Exact number. 정확한 숫자. And then, yeah, 주다, give. But I don't want its display form. I want the have to ending. According to inflection route number 1, if something ends with u, I'm going to add an extra vowel, form a double vowel that no longer sounds like u, but now sounds like 워. 근데, however, yes. Now, this double vowel, yes, usually does sound like 워. Very similar to when you say walk in English, of course, without the K sound. However, there are enlarged two situations where it will just sound like 오, right? Written as 워, but sounds like 오. Yes, those typical two situations would be when it's paired with the M or J consonant. Okay, we happen to be in one of the two situations then. So I'm just gonna pronounce it as 조. Anyway, now the have to ending. 줘야 돼요. Okay, so once again, let's say my job is to know the exact temperature. So I ask someone and they keep saying, it's kind of cold. I think it's kind of warm. So I'm gonna say, hey, don't be vague, ambiguous. 정확한 숫자 줘야 돼요. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Should we continue? Okay. Okay, okay. So that's when you use 숫자. Okay, now let's go back to the PDF files. So we talked about the first version. Okay, then how about 수? Okay, it is also a way of saying number. So 수 is usually used, yes, when you are using numbers to count how many. For example, when I'm saying we need the number of people who came. Okay, so how many people came yesterday? I need the exact number of that. Okay, so once again, now within this given situation, yeah, we're talking about counting how many. How many people came yesterday? We need the number of that, number of people who came. Okay, so yeah, that's when you use 수. So, for example, we are putting together a team. We have some kind of a project. Okay, so now I already have a teammate. Now I'm focused on, yes, let's say, the harmony between the teammates. Now, my friend, my other teammate, on the other hand, he thinks that we need more people. Okay, so we need more people. He says we only have 7 people on the team. We need at least 20. Okay, so let's say I'm gonna say, hey, come on, the number is not important. So let's say, yeah, I don't think this is a project that requires a lot of people. Yeah, if we have the right minds and we can work together, yeah, we can get this done. Okay, so I'm saying the number is not important. So I am using number within a situation where we are talking about something that we can count by saying how many. Yeah, because my friend is saying, how many people do we have? 7? That's not enough. Yeah, look at them. They have 23. Count how many people they have. They have 23. We need at least 20 as well. Now I'm saying, yeah, I did count how many people we have. We have 7, but that's enough. The number is not important. Okay, so once again, in this case, I'm going to use 수. So we have the number, the subject, no is, am, was, were, are, and not important, the predicative adjective. Okay, so I'm going to say 수, 안, 중요하다, but of course I don't want its display form important. I want its actual form present tense. So I'm going to say 수 안 중요해요. And yeah, to make it sound a little bit more fluid and fluent, I can also use a difference particle here, right? I can use a difference particle to imbue the nuance of, hey, the number is not important. So it means that something else is different in the sense that it is important. So I'm saying, yeah, the harmony, the teamwork is important. However, the number itself is different in the sense that it's not important. Once again, we are not going to call these topic marker particles. That term was literally made for exam Korean. Okay, so I'm gonna say, yeah, 괜찮아요, 괜찮아요. Don't worry about that. 수는 안 중요해요. However, teamwork is different. It is important. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Should we continue? Okay, okay. So that's why in this specific case, I made sure that I'm not going to use 숫자 and I'm not going to use 번호 or 번. I'm going to use 수. Okay, so now, then when do you use 번호 or 번 then? Yes, when you are using a number as a label, and I did say or code, but to elaborate a little bit more, I actually mean, yeah, coding. So some kind of a password, some kind of a code. I also call that labeling. That's what I mean by label or code. Okay, so some kind of a number that functions as a code, a password, for example. Also, when you say room number 2, it means that that room was labeled number 2. And also phone number. Okay, because, yeah, that current frequency that will be activated for me, yeah, that has to be activated for me to call, let's say, Max, will only be activated if, yeah, I type in his right phone number. So that current frequency was labeled, for example, let's say his phone number is 1234. That frequency was labeled 1234. Okay, so because when I say, what's your phone number? I'm not saying how many phone numbers do you have? I'm not counting how many, and I'm not quantifying either. Okay, so like how long, how heavy is your phone? How expensive is your phone? I'm not quantifying either. Okay, so that's what I mean by label or code, 번호, and yes, in some cases, you can use the abbreviation, the short version 번, but not always. We will talk about the details, yeah, in the latter part of this course. For now, I'll say 번호, and sometimes you can use the abbreviation, the short version 번. Okay, so for example, let's say now, speaking of teamwork from the previous example, let's say we are in a sports team. Okay, let's say we are playing, let's say, basketball. So I'm talking to a teammate, and now he is so worried about his 등번호. So now, of course, it might not be on the back. I'm not an expert in basketball. Okay, but I do believe that, yeah, on the back, on their jerseys, usually there's a number, right? Okay, so like 10 or 7 or 3, whatever. Okay, so that's why in Korean, usually when you're talking about sports, it's called 등번호, back number. 등, literally back, 번호, number. Okay, so why am I using this version instead of 숫자 and 수? Because I'm using this as a label. That player over there is labeled player number 10. Okay, so that's why we're going to call it back number, 등번호. Okay, so now my friend is going to say, yeah, the 등번호 is really important. Okay, so we know how to say important, right? We used it in the previous example. Okay, so let's use the adverb really, the predicative adjective important, know, us, and thus the subject 등번호. Okay, so yeah, my friend will say, yeah, for me, 등번호 진짜 중요해요. 진짜, really, and then 중요해요. Okay, 등번호 진짜 중요해요. Okay, so let's say he does not perform well if he doesn't get the number 8. Whatever the number may be. 등번호 진짜 중요해요. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Should we continue? Okay. So that's why I said you use 번호. Yeah, when you're talking about using a number to label or code, which includes, yeah, once again, phone number, for example, room number 2, or a code number such as a password. So that's why when you say password, Koreans say 비밀번호. 비밀번호. Yeah, a password, it actually comes from the word secret, 비밀, and 번호, number, a secret number. Okay, well, that makes sense, right? Because if it's not a secret, then why is it a code? Okay, so 비밀번호. So let's say, for example, I actually know the 비밀번호. Okay, so let's say I know something that I shouldn't know, but anyway, I do know. So I'm going to say to my friend with a very mischievous face look on my face, haha, I actually know the 비밀번호. Okay, so of course, usually no I, right? I think it would be usually obvious. The adverb actually, and then the verb know, of course, know the object 비밀번호. I know the password, I know the secret number. Yeah, actually know the 비밀번호. So I can say 사실 비밀번호. And of course, I am not going to give the H sound an H sound, right? It's going to be practically silent because it's somewhere in the middle of a word. Okay, 비밀번호 알다, but of course I don't want its display form. I need its actual form present tense. So I'm going to say 사실 비밀번호 알아요. Okay, yes. So 사실, actually, hey, don't tell this. Hey, don't say this to anyone else. It's a 비밀, it's a secret. So the secret is that I actually know the secret number. 사실 비밀번호 알아요. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Should we continue? Okay, okay. So, yeah, just one more thing. I did say that, yes, phone number would also fall into, yes, the fourth category. So that's why we're going to use 번호 or pun. Now, because you would be talking about phone numbers a lot, I think, I'm just going to explain a little something that could be important when it comes to phone numbers. Okay, so just like in English, once again, when you're saying 전화번호, of course, no H sounds. I'm not going to say 전화, and I'm not going to say 번호, right? I'm not going to say 전화번호. I'm going to say 전화번호. Okay, so yeah, just like in English, a lot of times you don't really have to say the phone part. So I might have to go as far as saying, yeah, it's not just that you don't have to, it's kind of better not to. Because if you say 전화번호, yeah, it could give off that textbook, yes, esque vibe. Of course, there's nothing technically wrong with that, but yes, in just normal situations, if someone says, yeah, can you give me your number? Do you know his number? Yeah, of course, usually people are talking about 전화번호. So 번호. Okay, so for example, so let's say I erased. Okay, so of course we can use the word delete, but yes, in just normal life conversations, people can just use the word erase as a way of saying delete. Okay, I erased his number from my phone. However, let's say, not because I don't like him, but yeah, I didn't mean to, it was just an accident. Okay, so in Korean, when you're saying I accidentally did something, you say, I'm sorry, as a mistake, right? As a mistake. So, yes, erased, verb, and no his. Of course, if I'm saying his, I'm pretty sure that there was some kind of a contextual buildup previously that makes his obvious. We know who we're talking about. So, and then number, and then as a mistake. Okay, so supplementary information as something. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to say, yes, 실수. And how do you place as in front of a noun? Well, this is how you do it, right? You first place the noun, 실수 in this case, if it ends with a consonant minus one exception, the L or R consonant, then yes, 으로. If it ends with a vowel plus one exception, the L or R consonant, then 로. Okay, so it ends with a vowel. So I'm going to attach 로. 실수로. And then, yes, 번호, because I'm talking about a phone number. which is using numbers to label and also code. Okay, and 지우다. Okay, a version of erase. And once again, I don't want its display form. I want its actual form, past tense. So according to the rules of inflection route number 1, I'm going to change it into wall and then attach the 써요 ending. Okay, so 실수로 번호 지웠어요. 실수로 번호 지웠어요. 실수로 번호 지웠어요. I erased his number as a mistake. Okay, so that's how you know how to say the word number. Okay, so that's why I cannot emphasize this enough. Yeah, before you start actually thinking about numbers, what's 9, what's 58, what's 93, before you start thinking about that, you always have to ask yourself, yeah, before I actually use a number, do I know how to say the word number? Is it 숫자, 수, 번호? Okay, so yeah, that's why we started off this course by talking about first vocabulary. Okay, so it was also a little bit of a warm-up session. So starting the next lesson, yeah, we will be actually talking about how to actually use numbers. And once again, yeah, there are two formats of numbers in Korean. There are native Korean numbers and there are Sino numbers, which means that, of course, you have to know how to say 45 or 92 or 12 in both ways, and also have to know when to use which. When do I use native Korean numbers and when do I use Sino numbers?